103 degrees Fahrenheit fever. Can't even take care of yourself. What a useless wife. Tonight, my husband Donald planned to host a house party with about 7 of his coworkers. But our daughter Olivia's fever hadn't gone down, and by evening, I was feeling feverish myself. I took my temperature, and it was a staggering 103 degrees Fahrenheit. There was no way I could host guests in this condition. Stay in the storage room so you don't spread it, but make sure dinner's ready first. Despite my condition, I managed to prepare the food as he demanded. Afterward, Donald locked Olivia and me in the storage room. It was the worst situation imaginable. I'd left my phone in the bedroom, so I couldn't even call for help. The temperature in the storage room kept dropping, and all I could do was hold Olivia tightly in my arms, praying her condition wouldn't worsen. The words despair and hopelessness flashed through my mind repeatedly. What was going to happen to us? Someone, please, help us. All I wanted was for Olivia to be safe. Fear and anxiety overwhelmed me as my own consciousness started fading. I didn't know how much time had passed after I closed my eyes, but suddenly, loud noises from the house startled me awake. I could hear things crashing, and Donald's voice shouting over the commotion. It seemed like he and his coworkers were causing quite a scene. "Hang in there. Are you okay?" A bright light flooded the storage room, and through it, I could see 6 or 7 figures rushing toward us. As my vision blurred, my only thoughts were about Olivia and her safety. My name is Myra. I started working right after graduating high school, and I've been with the same company ever since. At first, just keeping up with senior colleagues on sales visits was overwhelming. But now, nearly a decade later, I lead and mentor new recruits myself. People are often surprised to learn I didn't go to college, and their reactions always amuse me a little. One day, while on my usual sales rounds with a junior colleague, I encountered a man I hadn't seen before at one of our clients' offices. He introduced himself as the new account manager. "Nice to meet you. My name is Donnell, and I'll be handling your account from now on." He bowed slightly, then handed me his business card with a confident yet polite smile. Was he my age or perhaps a little older? His tall, slender frame and gentle, handsome features made me feel as if I were standing next to a lead actor in a romantic drama. Could this be what people mean by love at first sight? That was my first encounter with Donald. Soon after, we began finding ways to talk, both during work and outside of it, and eventually our relationship blossomed into a serious one. Even early in our dating days, it was clear how much his team admired him. One colleague, Davin, seemed to have a deep respect and trust in Donald. Even during our dates, when work calls would interrupt, Donald never showed annoyance. He handled each situation with patience and care. Seeing his dedication to his job and his genuine concern for his team only deepened my feelings for him. However, as our relationship continued, I couldn't help feeling slightly frustrated that it wasn't progressing further. At that time, I became more conscious of marriage and found myself wondering when the topic might come up. Maybe today, or maybe tomorrow, I thought, keeping my hopes and nervous anticipation hidden. One day, Donald surprised me by asking, "Would you like to meet my mom?" Of course, I eagerly said yes, and the following Sunday, I visited his family home. Donald's mother, Amy, greeted me with a warm smile. "Oh my, what a lovely young lady," she exclaimed. Amy loved herbal teas and offered me a delightful selection of peppermint and chamomile blends. "Well, thank you so much. I love herbal teas too," I told her enthusiastically. "That's wonderful. Here, take some of these home with you," she said, handing me several packets. "This much?" I asked, surprised. "Of course, Myra. Even though we've just met, I already feel like you're my daughter," she said warmly. Her words made me pause, and I suddenly thought of my own mother. I lost both of my parents at a young age, just before graduating high school. It was an incredibly painful time, and I struggled with sleepless nights and constant sorrow. During those days, chamomile tea, my mother's favorite, became my solace, helping me find peace and sleep. Since then, chamomile tea had become a cherished connection to her memory. In an instant, those memories washed over me. I found myself naturally seeing Amy as a motherly figure in my life. A few days later, I received an official proposal from Donald. "Will you marry me?" His words were simple, unadorned, yet they made my heart flutter. I decided to marry Donald, and we officially registered our marriage. At work, I received countless congratulatory messages, but I made it clear that I didn't plan to leave my job anytime soon. Donald and I also discussed our plans and decided to purchase a newly built house after the wedding. The thought of living together and planning for children filled me with so much joy. It was pure happiness. We also talked about the possibility of Amy living with us in the future. It was Donald's idea, but I wholeheartedly agreed. Ever since that day we shared herbal tea together, Amy had become like a mother to me. Right now, Amy was living at her family home, but I wanted to make sure we could welcome her anytime she wanted. Preparing furniture and tea sets in anticipation of her move became one of my favorite activities. As I spent more time with Amy over tea or meals, I began to notice something about her. She didn't seem to trust modern medicine, and instead relied heavily on natural remedies. Her love of herbal teas stemmed from her belief that they helped boost the body's natural healing power, allowing people to avoid medical treatment. Amy firmly believed that most illnesses could be cured with these natural therapies. She once spoke proudly about her approach. "Did you know? I never let Donald get vaccinated, not even once. And look how healthy he turned out." I found it hard to believe. In today's world, where science and medicine have advanced so much, it was surprising to meet someone so skeptical of it all. Donald seemed to have adopted some of her views as well, though his perspective was different. For him, illness was a sign of weakness, something to overcome with sheer willpower. Whenever I mentioned going to the doctor for a minor fever, Donald would furrow his brows and say, "That's just a waste of money. Illness is all in your mind. It's about how you think and handle it," he declared. He even claimed to have cured the flu with sheer determination, though I wasn't entirely convinced. Both of them had unconventional and, frankly, concerning beliefs. Though it made me uneasy, I chose to focus on their positive qualities. After all, everyone has their own way of thinking, and I thought I could adapt to their worldview. I decided to avoid visiting the hospital unless absolutely necessary. However, as days went by, my health began to deteriorate further. "This has never happened to me before," I thought, deeply concerned. Despite my growing worry, I hesitated to seek medical help, fearing how Amy and Donald might react. However, feeling this unwell was starting to affect my work. I decided to leave work early and head to the hospital before taking some time off. To my astonishment, the tests revealed that I was pregnant. Donald and I had been talking about wanting to start a family soon, so I was overjoyed and practically skipped home to share the news. When Donald came home, I told him about the pregnancy, and though surprised, he was thrilled. "I'm so happy. Our family is growing. Myra, please take good care of yourself," he said. "Thank you. I'm planning to let my company know so I can arrange for maternity and parental leave," I replied. Donald showed his concern by helping out a little more with household chores. As I watched my belly grow little by little, I could feel the baby inside me growing steadily, slowly but surely. Finally, I was going to become a mother. The thought filled me with a mix of emotions, half joy and excitement, half worry and anxiety. During the tough days when I struggled with morning sickness, Amy went out of her way to visit me and prepare some pre-made meals for us. "Myra, are you okay? I brought you some herbal tea as well. Let me know if there's anything you need," she said. Her kindness touched me deeply. Thinking about how my late mother would have cared for me in this situation brought tears to my eyes. With such wonderful people in my life, I resolved to have a healthy baby, no matter what. But then, something unexpected happened. At my 30-week checkup, I found out the baby was in a breech position. The doctor reassured me, "Don't worry, we'll monitor it closely." But I couldn't help feeling anxious. What if the baby doesn't turn around? I wondered aloud. I was taught some exercises to try and correct a baby's position, but they didn't work. Eventually, the doctor told me we might need to consider a C-section. Hearing the word C-section made me tense. While people often say every birth is a miracle, I began to wonder if I would experience one myself. I shared the news with Donald and Amy, hoping for support, but their reactions took me by surprise. "What? A C-section? Absolutely not," Amy exclaimed firmly. "Babies should be born naturally. Breech birth is a myth," she insisted. I sighed clearly during the ultrasound. I replied, trying to reason with her, "You just want to take the easy way out. Having a C-section shows a lack of maternal love." Their cruel words hit me like a heavy blow, leaving me stunned and speechless for a while. However, with the help of the midwife, I managed to convince both of them that a C-section was the safest option, even though they reluctantly agreed until the very end. I have no regrets, because the baby born to us was the most beautiful and adorable little girl in the entire world. Thank you, Myra. Thank you so much. When Donald saw our newborn baby, his attitude instantly changed, and he was overjoyed. I was overwhelmed with happiness, both from safely giving birth and seeing Donald so thrilled, and tears streamed down my face. We named our baby girl Olivia. Amy was ecstatic about the arrival of her first grandchild. However, her disapproval of my C-section remained evident, and she still wore a disapproving look. I couldn't help but feel that her attitude toward me had grown colder since the birth. Despite this, I poured all my energy into raising Olivia, determined to do my best. I decided to take maternity leave for a while, planning to return to work once things settled down. My smartphone quickly filled with photos documenting Olivia's growth. Her first time rolling over, her first crawl, her first steps, all milestones that made me realize how she was slowly becoming more independent. The one significant challenge was Amy and Donald's distrust of modern medicine. They were even skeptical about vaccinations and opposed giving them to Olivia. "She doesn't need those. How many times do I have to tell you?" Amy would shout in frustration. I resorted to secretly taking Olivia for her vaccinations, pretending to agree with Amy to avoid conflict. Olivia, unfortunately, was prone to fevers. After returning to work, I started sending Olivia to daycare. However, it became a routine occurrence to receive calls saying she had developed a fever after just a few hours there. While I understood this was normal for young children, it still worried me. Amid all this, Donald offered no help. "Just ignore the fever. It'll go away on its own," he'd dismissively say, brushing off my concerns about Olivia's health. Since Donald was unreliable, I secretly took Olivia to a pediatrician. However, my actions only seemed to escalate the tension. When Amy discovered I was secretly taking Olivia to the doctor, she began harshly criticizing me. "I trusted you, but you're just a failure as a wife. Why can't you listen to me?" she exclaimed. She went on to rant about how doctors were useless and modern medicine was trash. "Natural healing is the only way to go, and you know it," she added. "Amy, idealistic approaches don't solve real problems." I tried to reason with her, but she then accused me of betrayal. "You said you liked herbal tea, so I thought you were like me, a natural health advocate. How dare you deceive me?" I couldn't understand how liking herbal tea equated to fully embracing natural remedies, but no amount of explaining seemed to convince her. Relying on modern medicine is unacceptable. I couldn't stand it during the C-section. And now this. "Donald needs to discipline you properly from now on," she fumed. Faced with Amy's anger, I felt completely at a loss. Donald, siding with Amy, also began criticizing my reliance on medical care. "You run to the doctor for every little thing. Do you know how much money you're wasting?" he accused. "It's not a waste. It's necessary," I shot back. "A child's fever goes away on its own. Stop being so dramatic," he retorted. "Don't you worry about Olivia at all?" I asked him. When I asked him if he wasn't worried, he gave me a confused look. "You don't need to do anything. Kids grow up on their own, catch colds on their own, and get better on their own." To my shock, Donald spat out those words as if they were nothing. He went further, disregarding Amy's advice, and started treating both me and Olivia with outright neglect. According to him, Amy had told him, "You need to take charge and discipline properly." But his version of discipline meant dumping all the household chores that we used to share entirely onto me. "You're not pregnant anymore, so there's nothing I need to do. From now on, you handle everything yourself." Donald's words pierced my heart like thorns, leaving me both hurt and frustrated. I had always believed that marriage was about supporting each other, but this felt beyond unfair. Balancing everything was nearly impossible, especially since I had returned to work. Even little Olivia, despite being only 3 years old, seemed to sense the change in Donald's behavior. She looked up at me with worried eyes, her tiny face full of concern. I forced a smile and reassured her softly. "It's okay, Olivia. Don't worry, sweetheart. Everything's okay," I repeated, trying to sound convincing. She clung tightly to me, her small arms wrapped around my neck, murmuring "it's okay" like a little mantra. Meanwhile, Donald had been bad-mouthing me at his workplace, painting me as an incompetent wife. One evening, he came home and said, "Hey, Myra, I was talking about you with some of my coworkers today, and they all agreed you're not cut out to be a wife." His face wasn't angry or irritated. No, it was worse. He wore a smug grin, mocking me with a malicious twinkle in his eyes. "Even Davin said you're not cut out for being a housewife." I told him he was absolutely right. What kind of stories had Donald been spreading? I was sure he must have twisted the truth, adding exaggerations to make me look bad. The Davin I knew wouldn't say such cruel, condescending things, but that didn't stop the wave of despair from washing over me. The lack of understanding from Donald and Amy was draining me to my core. Fighting back tears, I held on to a shred of hope, telling myself that this storm would pass. This is just temporary. If I hold on a little longer, things will go back to how they used to be. Clinging to that belief, I endured the constant pain and resentment. On Thursday morning, the air was so cold that it felt like winter was already here. I worried that Olivia might come down with another fever. As if on cue, Donald suddenly announced. "Oh, by the way, I'm bringing some colleagues over tomorrow night. Make sure everything's ready to host them." "What? Tomorrow? That's way too short notice," I replied, stunned. "It's been planned for a while," he said, smirking with his usual malice. "I have my job, and I'm taking care of Olivia, too. I can't handle hosting on top of everything else," I protested. "La la la. I can't hear you. I don't want to hear your excuses." Donald covered his ears with his hands and deliberately shouted over me. He told me to prepare everything for tomorrow, and then left without another word. His actions left me feeling sad. No, perhaps sadness wasn't even the right word to describe it. I swallowed the pain in my heart and pushed through the day, juggling work, grocery shopping, and taking Olivia to and from her activities. That evening, as I prepared food for Donald's guests, I heard Olivia's faint voice calling me. I turned to find her slumped on the couch, her flushed face a clear sign that she wasn't well. Placing a hand on her forehead, I realized she had a fever. Donald, sitting just a few feet away, didn't even glance at her. He was engrossed in a game on his phone. How could he ignore his own daughter like this? The anger rising within me was almost uncontrollable. When I suggested taking Olivia to the night clinic, he exploded. "Stop being so dramatic," he shouted. "And you, ignoring your daughter to stare at your phone all night. How could you?" I shouted back, my voice shaking with rage. The argument escalated into a full-blown shouting match. The next morning, ignoring Donald's protests, I took Olivia to the doctor. Olivia's fever wouldn't break, and by the evening, I was feeling feverish too. By then, both Olivia and I were down with fevers of 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Hosting guests was out of the question. I texted Donald, asking him to postpone the gathering. His reply was heartless. "If you're contagious, stay in the shed. Just make sure the food is ready." I was stunned, treated like a servant in my own home. What I replied, I couldn't even remember. It was 4 p.m., and I knew I should start cooking, but my body was too heavy to move. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. It was Amy. Without waiting, she barged in. "You're not going to tell me you're sick and lying in bed, are you?" she said, glaring at me with disdain. "Amy, please, just go home. You'll catch something if you stay here," I pleaded. Despite my pleas, Amy didn't listen at all. She grabbed my hand, dragged me into the kitchen, and ordered me to prepare food for Donald and his guests. Donald told me everything. "I come here, and what do I find? You lazing around. I'll stay here and watch until you're done." True to her word, she stood at the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, keeping an eye on me. With no choice, I opened the fridge and laid out the ingredients I had bought earlier. My vision blurred, and my body felt heavy. Struggling to keep myself upright, I managed to finish cooking everything. But Amy wasn't finished with her cruelty. She grabbed me and Olivia, dragging us both outside into the backyard shed. She shoved us inside with such force that we both stumbled. There was a dull thud, followed by Olivia's crying. "It hurts," she whimpered. "Well, good job. You'll both stay here for the night. Got it." Amy slammed the shed door shut with a loud bang. She locked it with a piece of wood to ensure we couldn't get out. "No, no, please. Open the door, Amy. At least let Olivia out," I begged, my voice trembling with desperation. But Amy was already gone, leaving no sign of anyone nearby. This was the worst. My phone was upstairs in the house, leaving me with no way to call for help. The temperature kept dropping, and I could feel the chill creeping into the shed. I held Olivia tightly in my arms, praying her condition wouldn't get worse. Despair consumed me, the word flashing in my mind like a neon sign. What would happen to us? Would we just freeze to death out here? Someone, please help us, I whispered, lifting my gaze toward the heavens as if pleading with my long-lost parents for a miracle. Fear and uncertainty filled the cold air, and my consciousness began to fade. I didn't know how much time had passed before I heard loud noises coming from the house. It sounded like Donald and his colleagues were making a commotion. I heard crashing sounds mixed with laughter. Lifting my head toward the noise, I suddenly saw light flooding into the shed. A group of 6 or 7 people rushed toward us, shouting urgently, "Myra, are you okay?" It was a familiar voice. Yes, it was Davin, one of Donald's younger coworkers. Relief washed over me, and I let the comfort of being found carry me into unconsciousness. The next time I woke up, I was lying in a quiet hospital bed. I sat up abruptly. "Where's Olivia?" I glanced over at the small bed beside mine and saw Olivia sleeping soundly. Her soft, innocent face and chubby cheeks brought me a wave of relief as I exhaled deeply. But what exactly happened after I lost consciousness in the shed? I considered pressing the nurse call button to find out, but before I could, a nurse came in to check on me. The young nurse, with her short haircut, looked relieved to see me awake. I immediately asked her what had happened. She explained that it was Davin who had called the ambulance. Both Olivia and I were severely dehydrated and weak, but thanks to the quick response, we were now out of danger. Hearing her explanation, I could only respond with a faint, "I see." The whole situation felt surreal, like something out of a drama. As I tried to make sense of it all, the nurse opened a small drawer beside my bed and pulled out a slip of paper. It was addressed to me, something she said she had been asked to pass along. The paper looked like it had been torn from a notebook and folded in half. When I unfolded it, I saw a message written in round, slightly messy handwriting. "I'd like to explain the situation. Please call me when you feel ready." A phone number was written below the note, along with the name of the person who wrote it, Alicia. I didn't recognize the name, but I assumed it must be one of Donald's coworkers who had been at our house that night. I thanked the nurse for delivering the note. Later that afternoon, feeling somewhat better, I decided to call Alicia. To my surprise, my smartphone was in the drawer as well, although the battery was nearly dead. I dialed the number to uncover what had happened that night. After a few rings, a woman's voice answered. "Hello, could this be Alicia?" "Hello, this is Donald's wife. Thank you for the letter," I said hesitantly. There was a surprised gasp on the other end of the line. "Oh, you're my senior's wife. Are you feeling better? And your daughter?" Her voice was cheerful and sweet, and she expressed genuine concern for both Olivia and me. I assured her that we were doing much better and thanked her for helping us. "I'm so glad to hear that. I was worried about you both," she said, her voice filled with relief. She introduced herself as Alicia, confirming that she had written the note and was one of Donald's subordinates. "About that night," I began, "I'd like to know what happened." "Of course. Well, here's the thing," she replied. What she told me was something I hadn't imagined. It was about the day they visited my house just yesterday. There were about 7 of us, including Davin, who were invited to your house by our senior. Alicia began. "Of course, we hesitated to accept the invitation." Apparently, Alicia referred to Donnell as her senior. She explained that they were aware there was a small child in the house and initially tried to decline the invitation. However, Donald persuaded his subordinates and forcibly brought them to the house. The word coerce caught my attention, leaving me uneasy. What was Donald's real intention? "This is just my guess," Alicia admitted. But I think he planned to humiliate you in front of everyone." "What?" I asked, stunned. "He often made disparaging remarks about you in casual conversations." That struck a chord. I remembered him sharing something personal about me with his coworkers before, leading Davin to comment on my suitability as a wife. Something about them saying I wasn't fit to be a wife. I murmured, "What? No one said anything like that." Alicia replied firmly. "He said something about me not being cut out for being a housewife." "That's a complete misunderstanding. Everyone was actually sympathetic towards you, Myra." I stared at her, wide-eyed. So what Donald had said was either a lie or an exaggeration of something his subordinates had mentioned. Our senior, he has a bit of a tendency for emotional manipulation. She and all the other subordinates had felt that way while listening to Donald's stories. However, they hadn't been able to speak up against their boss, especially about something as serious as emotional manipulation. They were troubled by the way Donald belittled and disrespected both me and Olivia. And then that night, they were forcibly invited to our house. The house, strangely quiet, was filled only with alcohol and food, which struck them as odd. There was no wife, no sounds of a child. Even if the child is prone to fever, it was eerily quiet. No sounds at all. It felt like they had stepped into a horror movie scene. As the night wore on and empty cans of alcohol piled up, Donald became more talkative. That's when Davin casually asked, "Is Myra and the child out today?" Donald, in his drunken state, began talking freely. "Out? No, those two are in the shed." "What?" "Myra claimed she had a 103 degrees Fahrenheit fever and tried to get out of housework, so I locked them both in the shed." He started laughing loudly as he said it. The others in the room went pale and didn't laugh at all. "The shock hit me like a ton of bricks," Alicia said. "So what happened next?" I swallowed hard. Alicia continued the story. She and the other 6 rushed to the shed in the yard. Seeing this, Donald tried to block their way, shouting, "Don't go, stop." But with the odds 7-1, Donald couldn't stop them. 2 of them, former judo and karate members, grappled with Donald while the others went outside. It was already dark, and they couldn't see very well, but with the help of phone lights, they found the shed. Donald was still yelling in the living room, but he was being restrained by the 2 former judo and karate members, while Donald kept resisting. A nearby bear statue fell and hit him on the head. Ah, damn it. The sound I had heard from the shed, the crashing and shouting, was from that moment. Davin and Alicia, along with the others, rushed to the shed and removed the makeshift barricade. "Are you okay?" Davin called out, and then he opened the shed door. After that, Davin called an ambulance, and I stayed to tend to you and your daughter. The rest of the team cleaned up the house and even found my phone in the bedroom, bringing it to me. Sorry for going into your bedroom without asking. No, honestly, it was a great team effort. After leaving Donald, still shouting, they all went home. "Myra, I'm sorry, but everyone said they lost respect for our boss. This would be reported to their superior after the break," Alicia said. Given the chaos and the fight, it was understandable. "I'm so sorry for the trouble. My husband is truly." When I apologized, Alicia quickly reassured me, saying, "No, not at all. I'm just glad you and your child are okay. We're both on your side." After chatting a little more, I thanked her and ended the call. At that moment, I made a decision. The next day, Olivia and I were discharged, and I took action. When I got home, just as Alicia had said, the living room was spotless. The bear statue that had fallen on Donald's head was neatly placed on the table. Donald, who would usually be lying on the couch, was nowhere to be found. I searched for him and found him groaning in the bedroom. It seemed that he had caught the same fever that Olivia and I had. "Ah, is that you, Myra?" When he noticed me standing at the doorway, he slowly sat up. His face was flushed and his eyes were glazed over, clearly unwell. "Hey, I've got a fever. Take me to the hospital. And please take care of me." I sighed in disbelief. "What are you saying? You said going to the hospital is a waste of money, right? You always say a cold just gets better on its own, right?" The giant boomerang came back, and he quickly started denying it. "What are you talking about? There's no way that's true. I'm the one suffering, and you're just going to leave me like this? You've been dumping everything on me and Olivia this whole time." He had belittled me endlessly before, and now he wanted me to take care of him. What nerve did he have? The anger boiling inside me was beyond anything I had ever felt before. With my fury rising, I no longer felt any sympathy for him. There was no point in trying to reason with him or listening to his one-sided behavior anymore. I took a deep breath and said, "I'm divorcing you. I've realized I can't live with you anymore." "What?" he shouted in disbelief. "Don't joke around. I'm the one who supported you all this time. There's no way you can raise Olivia on her own. Well, sorry to disappoint you, but my income is actually higher than yours." Donald stared at me, wide-eyed, mouth agape. "I'll handle the divorce through a lawyer, and I'll be requesting child support for Olivia, so be ready for that." I had no intention of talking to him further. I turned on my heel and walked out of the room. I could hear him yelling and screaming behind me, but I ignored it and closed the bedroom door. I quickly packed a few things and called Amy. She had to deal with Donald now. When Amy picked up, she sounded bored. "What do you want?" "Actually, Donald has a fever, and I need you to take care of him," I said. I briefed her on Donald's condition and told her, "Please take care of the rest." Then Amy scoffed and snorted. "That's something you're supposed to do, not me." "No, I'm a bad wife, so I can't. I'm leaving this house now." "You're leaving? Are you going to abandon Donald?" "Abandon him?" I answered calmly. "The ones who abandoned me and Olivia first were you. You'll regret what you've done." "What? Wait, what do you mean by that?" "Oh, and as for Donald's care, you can try out the natural remedies you recommend. Goodbye." "Wait, listen to me." Amy continued to rant on the phone, but I hung up without a second thought. I grabbed my packed bags, took Olivia's hand, and left the house we had lived in. I wasn't coming back here. With firm resolve in my heart, I walked away without looking back. Olivia kept glancing behind, seemingly confused about Donald's absence. Just a few days ago, I never would have imagined I'd be leaving him. But when I realized that there were people close to us who would go as far as threatening mine and Olivia's lives, I knew then that even if it meant becoming a single mother, I had to distance myself from them. I was a mother, and I had to protect Olivia. I immediately arranged for a weekly apartment and moved in. I placed my things in the new apartment, grabbed a quick meal, and went outside. A cold breeze lightly brushed my cheek, signaling the arrival of winter. While eating at a nearby diner, I couldn't help but think of Donald. By now, he was probably waiting in the big house for me or Amy to come back. Just before leaving, I had placed a sports drink by his bedside. It was the least I could do, a small token of compassion. I whispered to myself, "I'll never go back to him, not even if the world turns upside down." The next day, I dropped Olivia off at daycare and went to work, as if nothing had changed. A few days later, I was shocked to receive multiple calls and messages from Donald. Though I felt a sense of relief now that I was free from him, I decided to return the call. When I answered, Donald's voice was full of regret and frustration. You made me take time off work. You need to take responsibility. If you wanted to work so badly, you should have gone. Stop taking it out on me. It's not just that. My mom caught the cold too, and now she's sick. Help me take care of her." When I told him again that I wasn't going to take care of him, he became even more agitated. "I'm telling you, what you and Amy did is bad enough to report to the police." What exactly did I do? Seriously, I almost laughed out loud. Locking your sick wife and daughter in the shed, what else would you call that but domestic abuse? Wait, I didn't do it. My mom did it. He started scrambling for excuses, saying things like, "That wasn't my intention," or "It was just a harmless joke." I was completely done with him. Listening to his pathetic excuses over the phone made me feel nothing but disgust. "Just come back soon. I'm begging you," he pleaded desperately. I coldly dismissed him, determined to shut him down for good. "I'm not coming back. From now on, communicate through my lawyer. I have nothing more to say to you." With a decisive tap on the screen, I ended the call and blocked his number. I couldn't afford to let him or anyone else endanger Olivia and me anymore. Glancing at the clock, I realized it was time to pick up Olivia from daycare. Excited to hear about her day, I grabbed my things and headed to the daycare center. After that call from Donnell, I filed for divorce and child support through a lawyer. This lawyer came highly recommended for her expertise in divorce cases and was ready to fight for my cause. She had been referred to me by a colleague, and I couldn't help but feel confident in her capabilities. As it turned out, Amy wholeheartedly supported the divorce, according to the lawyer. In fact, she was already encouraging Donnell to look for his next partner. The lawyer even chuckled, saying, "She has quite a strong mentality, doesn't she?" On the other hand, Donnell resisted. No doubt he was worried about how it would look to his company and society, so he was reluctant to separate. Eventually, after the lawyer lectured him thoroughly, he had no choice but to admit his faults and agree to the divorce. Later, I learned that Donnell had consulted his coworkers about the divorce. However, his behavior toward me and Olivia was already well known, so his colleagues and subordinates showed no sympathy. Instead, they subtly encouraged him to go through with the separation. Word of Donnell's behavior spread through the company via his 7 subordinates, and he even lost the trust of his superiors. Thanks to the lawyer, I secured regular child support payments from him. One day, everything seemed to be settling into place when I found out that Devin had become the point of contact for one of my work clients. When I met him, I took the chance to express my gratitude once again. "You really saved us. My daughter is doing so well now, thanks to you." Embarrassed, he replied with a modest "No, it was nothing." Then he leaned in and whispered, "Now that you're divorced, I can tell you something." What followed was a shocking revelation. Apparently, our senior's mother passed away from an illness recently, and shortly after that, he resigned from the company. Hearing about the illness left me unsettled. Though it was only speculation, I couldn't help but wonder if she had refused to seek medical help, relying instead on her natural remedies. If that was the case, perhaps she saw it as fulfilling her beliefs, even at the cost of her life. As for Donnell's resignation, the prevailing theory was that his tarnished reputation had become too much to bear. In today's world, news of domestic violence spreads fast, and it's not good for business relationships either, Devin said, choosing his words carefully with an awkward expression. Rumors at the company suggested that Donnell was now juggling part-time jobs. I felt no sympathy for him. What he had done was unforgivable, and I intended to ensure he continued paying child support. About 6 months later, as cherry blossoms danced in the spring breeze, I received some delightful news. Devon and Alicia were getting married. They announced it with radiant smiles of pure happiness. Congratulations. Oh, you two are such a perfect match, I exclaimed. Though I didn't attend the ceremony, I sent them a congratulatory message to celebrate their new journey. With their bravery and strength, I was confident they would overcome any challenges together. Soon after, Olivia and I moved out of a weekly rental apartment and into a newly built one closer to my workplace and her daycare. Fate works in mysterious ways. I discovered that Devon and Alicia lived on a different floor in the same building. This marked the start of a close family-like friendship. When Devon and Alicia became parents, Olivia immediately took on the role of a proud big sister to their newborn. Here, you can have this, she said, offering one of her cookies, an adorable gesture that melted my heart. While Olivia is still somewhat prone to fevers, they are less frequent now. This brings me relief as I watch her grow day by day. Illnesses and injuries will inevitably come, but my only wish is for her to stay healthy and happy as she continues to thrive. You're so dumb. Can't you do this more efficiently? It's frustrating just watching you. The harassment from my sister-in-law Michelle escalated day by day. It even started to interfere with my work from home. But I didn't break, because there was a job I desperately wanted to complete. My name is Amanda Smith, 29 years old. Working as a contract employee for a certain company, I live modestly with my dad, taking over the household chores to relieve my busy dad. He raced through life without a break, raising a daughter on his own. Gradually, I wanted to ease his burden a bit. When I was still in elementary school, Dad placed his large hand on my head and said, "You don't have to try so hard with the housework. Use your time as you like. That makes me happier." Dad was always kind and generous, no matter how tired he was. Secretly, I wished for his happiness. I hope Dad will find great happiness someday. This small wish came true a few years ago. Dad's new wife was named Barbara. Barbara, with her daughter Michelle, moved into the house where Dad and I lived. Barbara was honest and kind-hearted, a wonderful woman. In contrast, her daughter Michelle was prideful and cunning. It didn't take long for Michelle, initially quiet and reserved, to show her true colors. That day, as usual, I prepared lunch for Dad and sent him off to work. Barbara was away on a business trip since yesterday. Michelle, a college student, should have had lectures today. I decided to prepare her lunch before she woke up. Even with 4 in the family, I still managed all the household chores. Working from home, I had some flexibility, and I didn't mind cleaning or cooking. It was a nice break from work, refreshing my mind. Barbara, now my stepmother, said, "I feel bad having you do everything." But I assured her I enjoyed it. By the time I set breakfast for Michelle and me on the table, I heard her coming down the stairs. Groggy, Michelle entered the living room, and I greeted her. "Good morning. Breakfast is ready. Your lunch is on the table too, feel free to take it." Michelle paused and said, "I'm not going to college today." "Huh? But your calendar said you had lectures." "They were rescheduled later." I updated the calendar. "Didn't you see it?" "Ah, sorry. Haven't checked yet." In our house, where lifestyles greatly differ, we decided to write down schedules on a shared calendar. I'm still not used to this new habit and sometimes forget to check. Michelle sighed heavily and muttered, "You're really clumsy," before returning to her room. I didn't take her words too seriously, assuming she was just cranky from waking up. 2 weeks passed since then. After days of relentless rain, it finally cleared up on a sunny Saturday morning. Feeling refreshed, I was hanging laundry when I sensed Michelle, who had slept in, getting up. But something was noisy. She rushed from the bathroom to the upstairs, then hurried back down, looking around the living room. "Hey, where's my skirt?" Michelle's demanding tone was suddenly directed at me. Skirt? If you mean the one in the laundry basket yesterday, I'm about to hang it. No. The one I asked you to wash separately 2 days ago. I told you at dinner, remember? Oh, that one. It had a small tear, so I decided to mend it before washing separately. I finished mending it last night and it's in the washer now. What? Didn't you listen to me? I said I needed it washed early because I'm wearing it today. Are you even listening? I was at a loss for words. Indeed, she had asked to wash that long skirt separately, but I wasn't informed she needed it today. I recalled our conversation from 2 nights ago. I want to wear it next Saturday, so please wash it by then. Next, as in next week? Yeah. Don't make me repeat myself. Michelle ended the conversation abruptly, playing with her phone. That's when the misunderstanding occurred. And it was Michelle who hadn't listened properly. Though I had no reason to be blamed, I didn't want to argue and said, "Sorry. I misunderstood the date." But Michelle, standing before me, glared with a disdainful look. Think an apology solves everything? This is why I hate dumb people. Having a high school graduate sister, it's just unbearable. Can't even manage household stuff properly. Michelle attends an elite university, known nationwide. Our worlds are different. Yet, I had hoped we'd get along, now that we were family. Just to be clear, I never thought of you as family from the start. Michelle said mockingly, with a disturbing smile. Seeing that expression, I felt an eerie chill. From that day, Michelle's disdain towards me became more apparent in her actions. When I worked from home, loud music blared from Michelle's room. Not just disrupting my work, but loud enough to be a nuisance to the neighbors. "Could you lower the volume a bit? The neighbors might complain," I asked timidly, but she retorted, "What? Don't boss me around. I'm annoyed by the typing sounds from your room." She slammed the door in my face. On another day, Michelle brought friends home and said loudly, "Isn't it embarrassing having a high school graduate sister who can't even get a decent job? I wish she'd move out soon." One of her friends, leaving, jokingly said to my door, "Sorry for disturbing. Michelle feels sorry for you, so please move out soon, okay?" Her friends laughed as they passed my room. These harassments always happened when our parents were away. In front of Dad and Barbara, Michelle played the role of a good sister, purely amiable towards me. Before long, Michelle graduated from university and secured a job at a major corporation. Within a year, she got engaged to her company's superior. By then, I had moved out to live alone, freeing myself from daily harassments and gradually regaining a peaceful life. One day, an invitation to Michelle's wedding arrived. The ceremony was to be held overseas. Sighing, I placed the invitation on a nearby table. About 3 months later, I boarded a plane from Los Angeles International Airport to France. Since moving out, I had become distant from my family. I was worried about Dad, but Barbara was with him. Without me in that house, Michelle wouldn't cause trouble. To preserve Dad's happiness, I wanted to avoid family conflicts. It was better to keep my distance from Michelle and minimize visits to my family home. To Dad and Barbara, I said I moved out to focus on my career. Despite the suddenness, they respected my decision, telling me, "Don't worry about home, just do what you think is right. Yes, you should pursue what you want." It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance, they said with a smile. It's true Michelle's actions affected my work. But that wasn't the only reason I left. I felt it was time to confront my own life and take a new step. On the night before Michelle's wedding, in my hotel room, checking the dress and belongings for the next day, my phone rang. Michelle's name appeared on the screen. A bad feeling washed over me. Hesitantly, I answered the phone. It was Michelle's voice after several months. Hey, long time no see. Where are you right now? In a hotel in Paris. There was a brief pause in the conversation. Then, laughter erupted from the other end. Really went, huh? Are you stupid? How crazy can you be? What do you mean? The overseas wedding was a lie. Fooled you as expected. I'll send the real invitation later, okay? By the way, if you don't show up, I'll ruin something very dear to you. The call ended there. I sat weakly on the bed. Michelle had played a cruel trick on me, and she might be planning another scheme. Additionally, Michelle said. Moreover, she threatened to ruin what's most important to me if I didn't attend. Such an act could harm not just me but Dad and Barbara as well. Michelle could easily do something like that. The peace I had regained seemed to crumble in my mind. As long as Michelle and I are family, this situation will continue. I have no choice but to meekly follow Michelle's actions. Always. Then my thoughts abruptly stopped. Why did I leave home? Wasn't it to fully pursue what I wanted? I haven't achieved anything yet. Instead of feeling weak, I should work to change this situation. Even someone like me can find a way to stand up to Michelle. I rose from the bed and reached for the curtains by the window. Outside the glass, the Parisian night unfolded. Life is strange. Sometimes, when wandering in the dark, the path forward is illuminated and becomes clear. This was one of those moments. I closed the curtains, turned off the light, and slid into bed. The earlier anxiety had vanished, replaced by a soothing drowsiness. I closed my eyes slowly. Eventually, I spent about a week in France, taking the opportunity to enjoy sightseeing before returning home. Recharged, I returned to the US and threw myself into work. Forgetting to eat and sleep, I spent days glued to my computer. My mind ran at full speed, devouring documents and typing furiously. After 2 months of this lifestyle, I visited a specific place. Walking down the main street in front of the station, I entered one of the buildings. Exiting the elevator on the 3rd floor, I knocked on the first door down the hall. A soft female voice invited me in from inside. In my tote bag was a thick file at home. Inside was a large amount of copy paper that I had printed out at home. I intended to hand these to someone. As I touched the doorknob, a wave of nervousness made my fingers tremble. It's okay. I've done everything I could. Now, it was up to fate. I calmed myself down and quietly stepped into the room. On the day of Michelle's wedding, I had called the venue to inform them of my absence. Michelle probably thought I underestimated her, the high school graduate fool. Prideful Michelle, always needing to feel superior. But now I understood. Michelle lacked something vital. Something I possessed, but she did not. A knock on the dressing room door, and a man peeked in. Excuse me, it's almost time. Are you ready? Yes, I'm ready. I'll be right out. I picked up a Western book from beside me and left the room. At the same time, Michelle's wedding reception was underway. Stephen, her husband, was the son of a corporate president. Among the guests were some notable figures, and Michelle was inwardly proud. While everyone enjoyed the grand food and friends' performances, a man discreetly approached Stephen. After whispering something, Stephen said to Michelle, "Amanda isn't coming today. She appeared on TV, did you know?" Michelle was taken aback, clueless. Looking towards the guests, she noticed some commotion among Stephen's invitees. It was also streamed online, seems to be quite a topic. A colleague from Michelle's company, nearby, was heard speaking on her phone. "I've read this book too. Just released last month and already going for a reprint. It's a foreign sci-fi novel. The author passed away long ago. But it turns out it's written by a globally renowned scientist," someone started saying online. Another colleague at the same table mentioned, "That's the one that's been trending on social media recently, right? It's got futuristic, predictive scenes, and a friend told me it's interesting." A translator named Amanda Smith. "She was on a show today at noon." "Amanda Smith, isn't that Michelle Zassael's name?" Hearing this, Michelle immediately opened her mobile phone. A search on her timeline brought up my name. The top article read, "Historic Scientist's Posthumous Work Discovered?" Interview with translator Amanda Smith on her encounter with the book. The wedding venue was already buzzing with this news. Amid the commotion, the ceremony soon concluded. After changing in the dressing room, Michelle stepped into the hallway to see her parents and Stephen. Along with Stephen's parents, in a tense atmosphere. Such an embarrassment, being the subject of harassment. "We were clueless, and now we don't even know how to respond to inquiries from acquaintances," said Daniel, Stephen's father and the head of a major corporation, in a stern tone. "I've dined with Michelle numerous times, but she never once mentioned her Sael, Amanda. Are they on bad terms? I value family bonds, you know. I was lenient because Stephen seemed smitten, but I hear some women at the company don't think highly of Michelle. Do you think I know nothing?" Finally, Daniel added, "You better make this right. Call Amanda immediately. Arrange for me to meet her directly. If you can't reach Amanda, consider this marriage null and void." Undoing a marriage was easy for someone like Daniel. If the marriage were called off after such a grand ceremony, it would severely tarnish Michelle's reputation. She'd be too embarrassed to face her colleagues, and her friends would surely ridicule her. Michelle, pale-faced, frantically pulled out her mobile phone. First call. No answer from Amanda. Second call. Only the hollow ring. Fifth call. "The number you are trying to reach is not answering." An automated voice responded. "Maybe she's blocked you," her father suggested. "No way. Amanda must just be busy," Michelle defended. Skipping a wedding on the day itself is not normal, unless there's an accident or illness. Especially for family. I don't want to invite more trouble into my home. A woman like you, prone to problems, is clearly not suitable for our family," Daniel concluded. "But the ceremony is already over. Stephen, don't just stand there. Say something." Michelle looked at Stephen with her characteristic pleading eyes. But Stephen turned away, refusing to look at her. At that moment, Michelle realized something. Her parents, standing behind her, were silent, just observing. They could have defended their daughter but hadn't said a word. "Mom, it's not my fault, right? Tell them it's not my fault." Barbara smiled ruefully and said, "Actually, I got a call from Amanda yesterday. She said she couldn't make it to the wedding for some reasons. It's a long story, but you'll understand soon. It might be inconvenient for both of you, but she asked for forgiveness just this once. It's a big moment in her life." That's what Amanda said. "What do you mean? You knew about today? You knew and didn't tell me." Yes, exactly. If I had told you, you would have interfered, right? After all the trouble you've caused Amanda, you never learn. Really, you're impossible. I've failed as a mother. Michelle listened with a defiant expression. We thought if you experienced some hardship, you'd understand. So Dad and I discussed it, and, as bad as we felt for Amanda, we decided to turn a blind eye. It seems this is a family matter. We, as outsiders, should leave, someone interjected. Wait, please! We're not done here. I'll bring Amanda, I promise. Please reconsider, Daniel. I don't want to be addressed by my name by you. Do you want to anger me further? Even Michelle fell silent under Daniel's stern gaze. This time, she had picked the wrong battle. She watched, dazed, as Stephen and his parents walked away. Michelle, tasting her biggest defeat, finally realized her emptiness. After successfully appearing on the TV show, I was dining with an acquaintance. A French dinner at a luxurious hotel. Across from me sat Pamela, a dignified, calm elderly lady. I chose this place to celebrate. I wonder if a more casual setting would have been better. No, I'm really grateful. It's my first time dining somewhere like this, so I'm a bit nervous. I like your honesty. Just be yourself. I don't like formalities either. Enjoy the meal to the fullest. Pamela's titles included French literature researcher, translator, and translation school lecturer. She was also my mentor. I once found an old Western book among Mom's belongings. Dad said its origin was unknown. It appeared to be a novel written in French. There were notes throughout, indicating Mom had read it repeatedly. I remembered how Mom hummed foreign songs while cooking or doing laundry. It happened before I could remember, so I don't remember it clearly. Could those lyrics have been in French? I started reading the book bit by bit, translating with a dictionary, and got absorbed in its world. I became enchanted with the French language. I devoured French books and translated my favorites. I was so engrossed that I lost track of time. After becoming a working adult, I started attending translation school during nights and weekends. One of my teachers, impressed by my language skills, introduced me to translation work. I was delighted to take it on, especially since it could be done from home. Around the same time, Dad decided to remarry. Even with the increased family size, my work wasn't affected, except for the issues with Michelle. I was surprised when you handed me a thick manuscript. Your translation skills were professional level, and the novel had a unique worldview. I had been translating for years, but I was never quite satisfied with my work. It took a long time, but completing it helped me grow mentally. Yes, translation is a battle with oneself. Each completed work feels like shedding a skin. It's fascinating. I agree. That's why I can't stop. Pamela smiled warmly upon hearing my words. It's a blessing to have something you want to pursue passionately in life. When I returned home after a long time, Barbara greeted me. Dad was still busy with work. Coming home late as usual. I heard footsteps coming down from upstairs. Ah, finally awake. Michelle, you have a part-time job today. After the wedding cancellation and leaving her job, Michelle seemed to have been staying home. Barbara had told her, "How long will you sulk? Do you want to live miserably like this forever? If you don't want to start over, you better leave this house." Worried about being kicked out, Michelle reluctantly started looking for part-time work and settled on a grocery store clerk position. As Michelle passed by the living room, she glanced at me awkwardly and hurried out the door. "Amanda, you're going overseas for work, right?" You said something about a potential contract with a new author. Yes, it looks like it's going to be finalized. But they want to meet in person. That's great. I'm relieved to hear your translation work is going well. Take care, and I'm looking forward to the souvenirs. Barbara's innocent smile made me smile too. Continuing to do what I love is enough for me. I thought it was that simple. My ability to become a translator was because I maintained a pure heart. It's a gift from Mom in heaven. A talent to enjoy life to the fullest. On my way back from my parents' house, I passed by a dogwood tree. Stopping to look, I saw many buds waiting to bloom. Surely, I'm just getting started too. Blooming one flower at a time, I'll continue on my path. As the gentle spring breeze blew, I started walking again.